Neal Brown's not going to make it to the end of the year. A very credible source, sports host, is reporting it. Let's talk about it. This is Locked On West Virginia.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in, guys. Mountaineer Paul here on another episode of Locked On West Virginia. This episode is going to be brought to you by FanDuel, guys. Make your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, and that's guaranteed. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen every day, and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every single day. Well, we've been calling for it, and here we go. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to be paid for. I don't know any of these questions, the answers to these questions. But I do know it's being reported, at least, and by somebody pretty credible. Let's listen to the clip. Thank you to Ben Booth from over on X, who from the Ben Booth Show does a great job over there. He sent me a clip that he clipped of this. So we're going to, with his permission, play it, and then you guys can judge for yourselves exactly what's going on. All righty. Okay, here we go.
Who's on the hot seat and is going to be on the way out. I've got good information that Neal Brown's going to be done at West Virginia. I don't think that's going to shock a lot of people, but Neal Brown is going to be out. Even if he lasts to the end of the season, he is going to be fired. West Virginia, a 3-point dog in a classic Big 12 matchup in Tucson. West Virginia at Arizona. What do you do with teams like West Virginia with a lame duck head coach down the stretch?
Wow. What a hard-hitting question that was. What do you do with teams down the stretch with a lame duck head coach? Matt Youmans. And you might want to know who that is. So I went ahead and pulled that up. Although I've heard of his known by name and have seen him around, I wanted to make sure I had this information available for people that may be doubting the source, which is totally, I get that. So Matt Youmans joined BSIN after 24 years in the newspaper business. He spent the past 16 and a half years at Las Vegas Review-Journal, where he was a sports betting columnist and a 10-year beat writer covering UNLV basketball. He also covered the NFL and Oakland Raiders' proposed relocation to Las Vegas. For the past 7 years, he's co-hosted the Las Vegas Sports Line, a sports betting show on ESPN Radio. He previously worked at newspapers in Indianapolis and suburban Chicago and was a beat writer for the Bulls' final 2 NBA championship teams in 97-98, and also covered NFL, the Bears, MLB, the White Sox, and Big Ten basketball and other football beats. A 92 Purdue graduate, he relocated to Las Vegas in 2000. So you can't get a better source. You can't find one outside of Mike Casazza on this issue, or somebody, or Keenan Cummings, somebody like that. Like, you're not going to find a better source. So this guy's reporting it, guys. He's got way too much credential to lie about it. He's not like you see people on X that will throw that stuff against the wall, and if it sticks, they claim it. That's not this. This is a legitimate report. This is somebody that it has a lot of credibility. He works for ESPN, for goodness sakes, on ESPN Radio. So, and he's been in the newspaper business for a lot of years. Listen, I have only been inside the YouTube thing for a couple years, and I've made connections with people I never thought I would make connections with. Former head coaches, former players, media people at ESPN, name it. It's not hard when you're in the business, and if you get any info at all that's exclusive, it becomes a weapon that you can then trade with other people. And I promise you, that's exactly how I've gotten almost every source that I've gotten, is not weaponizing the information, but using it to my advantage because I had to really claw and scratch for it. I actually got made fun of for it. People would look at my replies on X and see that I was basically reaching out and begging people for come on my show or whatever. And I'm okay with that because I had to scratch and claw to get to a certain spot. Anyway, point is if I've got any sources at all, this guy here absolutely dwarfs me in the source department. So what does this mean for West Virginia football? Well, I think it answers the question a lot of us have an answer to, or the reverse of that. Listen, I haven't been awake very long. I am, like I say all the time, a bachelor. I don't get up until about 10:30, so I'm still trying to wake up a little bit here. But so I think this is the question a lot of us had. What's going to happen? Is this going to be the year? And it doesn't mean it's for sure. I want to put that out there as well. But it's definitely an indicator. And a lot of times these things don't get released for no reason. A lot of times sometimes if you look at certain reporters, you can usually tell who they're connected to if you look hard enough. I don't know with this one, who he's connected to from West Virginia. Could be Shane Lyons for all I know, who might know about this. But I'm trusting it for now. Now, if they go on a run and win the next 4 games, it gives Ren Baker an excuse to keep Neal. I still don't think, based on the vitriol from the fan base, I don't see how this can continue. I don't see how he can. It's to the point now to where every press conference is scrutinized. It's to the point to where every clipping is scrutinized, and I'm guilty of it. Every decision he makes is scrutinized, not just regular scrutinization. This is like people are really digging into Neal, and I'm guilty of it too because I was so mad at him for the press conference that he had, and yesterday's too. Yesterday's press conference really made me mad. It did. I wasn't happy with how he talked to Asti, and I know that because Asti rubs a lot of people the wrong way. He's been good to me. He lets me use his content at times. He's never told me no if I asked him to come on a show or do anything. Like, he's always been really good to me. So I don't have anything bad to say about Asti, although I do know his takes can be annoying to certain people. When you're in that world, it's a little bit different. So, all right, guys. So, appreciate you guys for joining in. This was a big shock to me already today. Wasn't expecting to hear this, but I think a lot of the questions now are going to surround the team buy-in. Does this affect any of the players? Does anybody hit the portal? Do you start to see that, like I said, that team buy-in stop, or do they rally behind a coach that, let's just be honest, a lot of these players really love Neal Brown, a lot. Rodney Gallagher, like there's Nico, like there's a lot of Garrett. Obviously, he's literally ready to die on the hill with Garrett. So I think it could happen. You could see him rally behind Neal. We'll see. I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. Up next, guys, we're going to talk more about what does this mean for this West Virginia football team. How are they going to get ready for Arizona with all this floating around in the air? Stick around. This is Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Return On You. Hey, Locked On West Virginia fans, it's time to recognize the Return On You Player of the Week. So far this season, we pulled over $20,000 to support players on Return On You. Micro deposits lead to massive change, and with the Roy app, you can direct your support to athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific players you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates on the season. The best part is that it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. Don't miss out on Return On You's exciting giveaway with 2 tickets in a game to this November. Just download Roy, create an account, and the referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Return On You, well, just any contribution at all to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase is necessary, and you can void this where prohibited. Download Return On You now. Join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at ROY_return on you for more info. Support the players, change the game. I kind of want to be like the guy that does the EA Sports. Support the players, change the game. EA Sports. It's in the game. Did I do okay? Probably lame. I'd rather be a sheep than a hyena. Interesting. Or a hyena than a sheep. Interesting quotes from some people in the comments. Yeah, I mean, I think it's this is a situation that's going to get scrutinized from all ends. There's no right answer, really. From a fan's perspective, there are going to be people that support Neal Brown based off of certain things they believe he stands for and is good for. And there are a lot of things that Neal Brown stands for and is good for, just not on the field. If the on-field portion of this matters to you at all, and to me, it's all that matters. Not all that matters. It's like, at least if we're judging this on a pie, okay, it depends on what perception you're looking at it from. I want to put that out there first. Like, if you're coming at it from the money side, it's like 75-80%. If you're coming at it from a fan side where the money matters, but also the winning matters, it could be 50-50. There are different ways to look at it, but I'll just separate it like this. I think 50% of it is the on-the-field portion at least. You have to at least go 50%. I think 30% of it is team culture, the environment that you bring players, families into, that's graduation rates, etc. Then you, if I had some paper, I could probably break it down even further. But those two things are big, and then you get into staffing decisions, portal. Like, what decisions have you made to get here? Because obviously, I was just telling somebody this the other day. If, let's say, Curt Cignetti, and this is a way out there hypothetical, but I'm just trying to make a point. If Curt Cignetti went to West Virginia, let's say, the team that he has assembled in Indiana, probably 75-80%, if not more, of those players probably aren't at West Virginia. It's not because West Virginia is not better or more entertaining than Indiana. It's just the way it would have worked. Probably would have got a couple different staff members who would have recruited different players. Like, there's a million things you can look at. And so similarly with this staff, one staff change here or there. Let's say Jordan Leslie goes and Jamil Adai stays. How much does that change this defense? Who all is on the defense? Who do we recruit as an example? I think, those are just, I'm just making a point, Baxter. It has nothing to do with Cignetti. But I think that's, there's a lot that can change based on what a coach, who he picks and brings into the program. Obviously, it's an obvious thing to say, but that's part of the pie. And then I think the press conferences and how you deal with the media is another portion of that pie. And he has not passed that test either. So I think you have to get, so you have to give Neal probably a 40% pass rate ish, if you consider everything. He's about 500 as a coach. So it's not completely, it's not like some people we've seen. Like, if you look at the guy from ECU that got fired the other day, I think he's 5-14 in his last 20 games, basically. So it's not exactly that bad, but it's 500 ball. It's mediocre. It's, you beat who you're supposed to beat and you lose who you're supposed to lose to, and everything else you do is pretty well right on the field. No, but as far as from a culture standpoint and all that, everything seems right. I start to ask questions about Neal Brown. Sumrall, the coach at Tulane, supposedly a huge piece of that team. Vic Koenig, however you say his last name, obviously the defensive coordinator that never got to even call play here. I wonder how big those two pieces were to the Neal Brown pie. And what if Jordan Leslie gets that defensive coordinator job or head coaching job at Troy a couple years back? I wonder what would have changed from that. There's so much I wonder about. But at the end of the day, guys, this is where we are. Neal Brown is probably not going to return as the head coach at West Virginia. For better, for worse, Who knows? He could pull the ultimate Frank Beamer, who I always bring up because I think Frank Beamer, it took him 5 years. It's not been this long, but I think it took Frank Beamer 5 years at Virginia Tech to really get it rolling over there. And historically, we've seen that. But in the portal era, it just doesn't even – it's not the same anymore. So you can't even judge people based off how things used to be anymore. Like you can't develop players anymore, none of that. So unfortunately – this is where we are. So, yeah, I think that's a great way to say it. I don't think he's the worst, but we deserve someone better. So, and I want to know, guys, I was thinking about this too. Neal Brown at the press conference yesterday was pissed. He was mad. Do you think that maybe he was told about this yesterday? This came out last night, apparently on VSIN, Matt Youmans. Do you think that maybe Neal found out about this yesterday? Just a question. Maybe Neal knows that it's over. I mean, you look at that body language, how he was talking to people. It literally. Now you could also make the case that he's just fed up based on how the previous Monday's press conference went. And the flying the banner and all that around, like maybe he was just, okay, I won't give him anything to harp on. Or maybe he found out, listen, you're going to have to pull off a miracle and win every game to even have a chance, plus the bowl game to even have a chance to keep your job now. There's so much vitriol. There's so much, people are so mad. You can't even, you got Pat McAfee, and that really amps up the situation, by the way, the Pat McAfee stuff. You notice Pat McAfee hasn't said much here the last couple of days either. I wonder why. There's still people in the chat that continue to trust the climb. That blows my mind. I'm not going to lie. That blows my mind that somebody can honestly trust the climb. We all know the numbers. It's like you can say them out loud to people, and they still don't want to hear it. I just want to know, are you not listening, or do you hear me and are not listening, or are you just in denial pretending like it's not real, or are you like I was coming into this year? I'm willing to forget the past 5 years if you just win this year. Well, obviously last year he won 9 games, and I was in denial about that too because the schedule was so weak. It's really similar to what you look at, like, I think, is it BYU or Iowa State? Whoever, I can't remember which one of those teams has such an easy schedule remaining, but that's where we're at. So I don't know. For me, though, I'm not going to be fooled anymore, obviously. I've been over and out on this for I really started to falter after the Pitt loss. That becomes now the best win of the Neal Brown era. If you just beat Pitt when you were up 10 in the fourth quarter, that becomes the best win of the Neal Brown era. Imagine that. They would be 6-1 right now. That's your best win. This Pitt team, who is probably, they're probably the third or fourth best team in the ACC. I wouldn't say they're the best. Their defense isn't good enough. I think Miami and Clemson are both better. And then you can debate them for 3 or 4. But at the end of the day, we couldn't get that one done. And obviously that would have been a huge, huge thing. But even bigger is last week it was pretty obvious that Kansas State was better than us. The week before against Iowa State, I didn't feel the same. I felt like we were comparable in most positions but wide receiver and secondary. If you look at against Iowa State, we were better at offensive line. We were better at running back. We were better at defensive line and linebacker. And they were better at secondary, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end, but just barely. So I felt like that was a pretty even match. And unfortunately, they came out, and this is a consistent thing with Neal Brown. If you just like in the press conference yesterday, here we go. What did he say? We were outmanned in the second half, right? That's what he said. Neal Brown said this yesterday. We were outmanned in the second half. But what about all those other times I heard you say next man up? Does that not apply when you lose? Obviously not. It doesn't apply when you lose. It only applies when you win. Well, we had next man stuffed up and we played well, but when we lose, it's we were outmanned and we were beat up. So both, you can't ride the fence, and he does it all the time. Rides the fence on this stuff. It's just ridiculous, man. I see through it. Credit to them. Yeah, credit to them. They do a great job. Somebody did you know how, so has anybody seen and I'm not getting political here. I'm just asking a question. Has anybody seen the Kamala Harris, where she talks about that she kept saying the same thing over and over and over and over? They had like literally over 100 instances where she said, unburdened by the something of the something. And then somebody made one the next day of Neal Brown. Credit to, and it was literally credit to he said it in every press conference, every single one. It's like me. Like people point out to me that I say and and what's some other ones I do? See, I do a ton, and I've tried to stop it, but can't do it yet. I'm not a professional journalist. That's what I tell people all the time. Was that your comment, Golf? Yeah, it was you, wasn't it? You did make that. That was so funny, dude. Credit. Neal Brown obviously got a lot of extra credit when he was in school. Oh, man. At the end of the day, though, let's put this back into perspective. This is affecting more than just Neal Brown. There's a lot of players, coaches, and families that are going to be displaced if this happens. Let's talk about that on this next segment of Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets that's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And looking at FanDuel, Arizona still a 3-point, I've seen both, 3-point favorite as we head into Arizona on the road for another game. I don't know which way the money's going to go in this one. Both teams are 3-4. I don't know which way to bet. I don't know who's going to win this game, but check FanDuel to figure out which way to place your bets. We're back. Thank you guys for making Locked On West Virginia one of the most watched YouTube shows. It really makes me happy. There is 300 of you guys in here right now if you include 100, almost 150 of you guys on X, and almost 150 of you guys on YouTube. So thank you guys all for being here. Please like and share the video if you can. If you're watching this on X, just the like button and then retweet this if you can. I would appreciate that very much. I think that's a great point. He says, I'd like Ren Baker to come out and announce that there will be a new coach next year. This gives the freedom to do a coaching search, but doesn't open the portal until Brown is gone at the end of the year. That's a great point. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think that they'll even address it. I don't even think at this point until somebody a little bigger than BSIN reports on it, maybe. Although it's big, don't get me wrong. It's not, at least yet, nothing national has picked it up. Until that happens, I don't see anything by the West Virginia. I don't see them addressing any of this. They haven't addressed the press conference. They didn't address the banner. They haven't addressed any of these negative things. They've just pretended like they didn't happen. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's just how they've chosen to go about it. So whether you agree or disagree with Neal Brown or Ren Baker, that's how they've gone about this. But what about the players, man? I hate this. I really hate this. Make West Virginia football grade again. Credit to West Virginia football. Extra credit. We need extra credit to grade again. God, why did I have to see that comment? It threw me totally off. Okay, so there's obviously players that are going to be affected by this that I love and care about. I mean, I can name a couple out loud. Nico Markiel, Josiah Trotter, Xavier Bosley, TJ Jackson, which he's going to graduate, and more. Garrett Green, I love Garrett Green. Just don't love how he's played this year. I feel like he gets injured too much to really be a factor on the field. That's my ultimate. Now that we're halfway through his 5th year, in his 2nd year as a starter, and by the way, thank you, Garrett Green, for staying at West Virginia all those years and waiting for your turn because you were Neal's first recruit and all that. I get it. But what it's kind of almost poetic justice that he may be the last recruit, that you lose or play with, whatever. That made no sense. I was trying to do something there. But there's a lot of players involved here that I feel bad for. There's a lot of coaches that I feel bad for. I think if you're looking at there's a couple possible superstars on this staff. Blaine Stewart, who, if he had a little more seasoning and maybe he comes back as West Virginia head coach someday, I don't know. But I wouldn't rule out Blaine Stewart as somebody that returns someday. Hell, maybe we get lucky and some of the staff sticks around. Maybe if a new coach comes, highly doubtful. Shaq, thank you for the super chat. I have to address this as well. I'm not allowed to take super chats anymore. I thought we turned that function off. ROCKEL 85 on Cash App is the best way to support me personally. I'll put that in the chat. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. But thank you very much for the support. And he said, I'll go ahead and read it one last time since you paid for it. He says, make West Virginia football great again. But, I think you look at some of the coaches on this staff. Matt Moore has done an incredible job the last 3 years, especially when you think about Doug Nestor, Wyatt Milam, Brandon Yates, I think is probably going to be a pro player. Tomas Remak is going to be a pro. Obviously, Zach Frazier may be the best center in football. And if all else was equal and we had anything to surround this team with, this offensive line is good enough to win a Big 12 championship. But it can't do it alone. And when you have no passing attack, it's not because we're getting sacked. Like we got time back there. If we had any other quarterback in our history, probably be the best offensive line they ever played under. But we don't. And so we have a running game, but you can only do so much. Even the best offensive lines in NFL, college football, get stonewalled when you could put 9, 10 guys. You can outnumber them. You can't block everybody. So, oh well. What do you mean, Baxter? That makes no sense. Makes no sense, brother. I can pretty much do what I want. All right. So, who else on the staff was I going to mention really quick? Obviously, Chad Scott is another one. I think Chad Scott's a guy you might see as a head coach someday. Who else? Probably Coons is a guy I still think have a lot of faith in. That's based on the linebackers, has been pretty good this year. And in other years, Shadon Brown hasn't done a great job this year, guys. And I hate it because I like Shadon Brown. He seems great in interviews and everything. He's done really bad. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but they didn't hire a coach. Was it for the corners or the safeties? It slips my mind. But yeah, so, that's another one that kind of bothers me. But Matt Moore, A.J. Jackson is another guy who I think is going to be great someday, who almost got the Penn State job, by the way. He was this close to getting that job for their defensive line. So like there are good coaches on this staff, is what I'm saying. It's not like they're completely just unable to do anything. So I don't know. I don't know why he overrides everything. But at the end of the day, guys, this is the report. We'll see where it goes. I figured I would get on here and at least address it. I'm at my limit, 30 minutes, so we have to go. But before we do, I want to just say, do me a favor, guys, and thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Drake Toll leads the conversation on conference realignment news and holds no punches when it comes to covering every team in the Big 12. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, guys, thank you for everything. Hit that like button before you leave. Share the video out if you can, and we'll talk to you probably late. I'll be doing another one here in a couple hours. Probably looking for me about 5 or 6 o'clock. I'll be back. I'll see you guys here in a couple hours, guys. It's Locked On West Virginia.